All right, let's talk about something that I'm willing to bet a lot of you have experienced. That feeling of a manager, just watching your every move. It's one of the things people hate most in a boss, and for some really good reasons. So what's really going on there? Let's break down what micromanagement actually is, why it feels so uniquely awful, and the kind of damage it can do to an entire company.
To get started, let me paint a picture for you. A story that might sound a little too familiar. There was this woman who'd been in an insurance company for years. She was a total pro, an expert in her field, and she genuinely loved her work, the challenges, the people. But there was this one period she remembered for all the wrong reasons. So what was the problem? A new manager. And even though she was a top performer with a long history of success, this new boss just had to be involved in every little thing she did, questioning tiny decisions, demanding constant updates, and almost overnight, the job she loved turned into a daily source of frustration and, honestly, dread. Her story? I mean, that is a textbook case of micromanagement. But to really get to the heart of it, we need to be clear about what we're talking about. Because, not all close supervision is a bad thing. This here really lays it all out. On the left, you've got close management. This is when an employee is struggling and a manager steps in to help them get back on track. That's not micromanagement, that's just good leadership. But on the right, that's micromanagement. It's not about helping an employee, it's about the manager's own need for control, and it's aimed at people who are already doing a great job. So here's the key takeaway, let's call it the toxic formula. It only counts as micromanagement when two things are true. The involvement has to be excessive, and it has to be aimed at someone who is already competent. If you take away one of those, it's probably just normal management. But when you put them together, that's when you get a really bad situation.
And hey, if any of this is starting to sound familiar, you are so not alone. Just look at this number. Surveys show that a staggering 60 to 70% of us feel like we've been micromanaged at some point. It's pretty much a universal workplace problem.
Okay, so we know it's super common. But that leads to an even bigger question. Why does it make us feel so bad? I mean, it creates such a strong, negative reaction in almost everybody. Let's dive into the psychology behind it. So let's just ask it straight up. Why does being micromanaged feel so uniquely terrible?
The answer really boils down to this fundamental human conflict. We are all wired with a deep desire for autonomy. The freedom to make our own choices, to own our work. And micromanagement is a direct assault on that. It yanks that autonomy away and replaces it with someone else's control.
This idea here captures it perfectly. At the end of the day, the dynamic between you and your manager, it's a relationship. And in any relationship, whether it's at work or at home, nobody likes to be constantly controlled or second-guessed. It's a recipe for disaster.
But this is about so much more than just hurt feelings. That frustration that one person feels, it scales up. And when it does, it has a very real and very high cost for the entire business.
The consequences are pretty severe, and they're predictable. First, you get a demoralized workforce. Then, creativity just gets crushed. Why would anyone take a risk or try something new? Surprisingly, overall productivity actually starts to drop. And, eventually, your best people, your most talented employees, they just walk out the door. And this brings us to one of the oldest and truest sayings in the business world. People might join a company because they love the brand or believe in the mission, but they leave because of the person they have to report to every single day. A bad manager is the #1 reason talented people quit. It's as simple as that. But this is where the story takes a little bit of an interesting and kind of surprising turn. Let's go all the way back to the woman from our story at the beginning. What do you think happened to her? Well, luckily for her, the situation wasn't permanent. You know how big companies are, always shuffling people around. Her micromanager was eventually moved into a different role. And just like that, she had her freedom back. The job was enjoyable again. It turned out the problem was never the company, it was just the person. And this points to a really surprising silver lining. That constant change and reorganization we see in the modern workplace, the very instability that a lot of us really dislike, can actually be the solution. Think about it. If you have a great manager, all that change is a risk. But if you have a bad one, it can be a blessing in disguise. So all this leaves us with one final, really crucial question to think about. If individual managers, both the good and the bad, are ultimately just temporary, Then what is it that makes a workplace permanently good? What's the real secret to a company culture that can outlast any single person?